The Cuyahoga County Council Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, August 3rd is now called to order. Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is 3:05 p.m. Calling the roll, Ms. Cotwell. Present. Ms. Brown is absent. Ms. Stevens.
Present.
Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Ms. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Council President Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you, Andrea. Has anyone signed in for public comment?
No, Mr. President, no one has submitted public comment.
Right. All meetings of the Cuyahoga County Council are open to the public under the Ohio Open Meetings laws. Under that law, council may go into executive session during a meeting for specifically authorized purposes. During executive session, council confers outside of the hearing of the public. Council may not make any decisions about any matters in executive session. All decisions are made in public. This afternoon, the council will go into executive session to discuss a collective bargaining matter. During this time, our live stream will be down, and we ask all those not specifically needed for the executive session to remain in council chambers. Council members will convene in the adjacent Committee Room A and will re-enter the meeting once the executive session has ended. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll on the motion to go into executive session?
Yes. Ms. Baker? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Tuma?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Mr. Schron?
Yes.
Ms. Conwell?
Yes.
Ms. Brown is absent. Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Council President Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the ayes have it. We will adjourn the meeting for an executive session. We are reconvening the council meeting, and we are now back on the record. Item referred to committee, confirmation hearing. Welcome to the confirmation hearing, at which council will consider the appointment of Paul Hurdick as Director of the Department of Development. For a little background, the Department of Development and the powers, duties, and qualifications of the Director of Development were established under the county charter. It is our understanding that Mr. Hurdick is currently serving as interim Director of Development and will be made permanent upon council confirmation. The hearing process will proceed as follows. The nominee will be offered an opportunity to address his qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlooks and plans regarding the office. Council members will then be offered the opportunity to ask questions of the nominee. We will do so in rounds, allowing each council member to ask 2 questions per round until all council questions have been answered. Once all questions have been asked, we will entertain a motion to recommend that council approve or reject the nomination at today's council meeting. Thank you, and let's begin.
Council President,
Yes.
may I read the item into the record?
Yes, you may.
Resolution 2021-0171, confirming the county executive's appointment of Paul Hurdick upon his taking the oath of office as Director of Development.
Council. Mic is on. It is a great honor to be nominated for this position. I would say this is the culmination of my career in public service with Cuyahoga County. It's particularly an honor because right here in this room on council is the person who recruited me to come to work for Cuyahoga County, Cheryl Stevens. Cheryl was Director of Development back in 1994. I was at the time serving as the Executive Director of a community development corporation, the Union Miles Development Corporation in Southeast Cleveland. I don't recall exactly where we met. It may have been at one of many meetings where we were together criticizing a large federal agency for the way it handled certain things. That federal agency, however, is now in much better hands, Department of HUD, and I'm sure its mistakes will not be repeated. But however we got to know each other, Cheryl contacted me, said, you know, Paul, there's this opening at the Department of Development. I need a housing manager. Would you please consider applying? I did, and as they say, the rest is history. Let me back up a little. I consider myself almost a Cleveland native. I came here in 1976 to attend classes at Case Western Reserve University. My first civic memory is riding the number 6 bus downtown from University Circle downtown to attend a campaign rally for Jimmy Carter, who was running for president that year. My first contentious civic memory is voting in the recall election of then Mayor Dennis Kucinich. That was an issue around those times. But as a relatively young person, as a student, I was aware of civic events. I was aware of being in the city of Cleveland. I was aware that there were some challenges facing the city of Cleveland even back then. I used to get some kidding from my 2 brothers. I think they said, why are you going to live in the Mistake on the Lake? To which I quickly learned to reply by reciting many of our strengths. Browns, you know, our culture, our dedication as Clevelanders to being here. I completed my studies at Case Western Reserve University, went on to study law at the Cleveland Marshall College of Law, so I'm doubly an alumni of Cleveland schools. I had the privilege of being sworn in as an attorney by Stephanie Tubbs Jones and proceeded to then serve at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland in their civil section for about 5 years. My first duty station was in the Charles Carr Center, which is now the headquarters of the CMHA Police, right out by the King Kennedy Estates, right there at East 55th and Woodland. So I had an opportunity every day to firsthand work with people, many of them residents of public housing, who had the issues, concerns, you know, of folks who are facing many challenges right here in Cleveland. It was a great practical education in life as it exists for many of our citizens who don't have a lot of money, may not have a lot of opportunity. I was recruited out of that office to go serve, as I've mentioned, as director at Union Miles Development Corporation. Again, terrific practical experience out on the street every day, knocking on doors, talking to residents in their homes. We would work with very basic issues like our street club would like someone to come out and catch the stray dogs. That is still an issue, and we held a number of meetings with our city councilmen saying, can we please get some help on these issues? It was, however, an opportunity to work on some much larger issues as well. We and I, with staff, were able to develop both commercial and residential projects. We built some new homes. We put in a new shopping center at Miles East 131st. We had an opportunity to do direct service programs for our residents. We even had an opportunity to engage in an issue which is very much alive today, the issue of banks' responsibilities to their community. We were active, as was the city of Cleveland at that time, in working to hold some of the larger banks accountable, and we were engaged in some of the negotiations that led to some of the agreements that have helped over the years to have some reinvestment back in the city of Cleveland. So all of this resonates with some of the issues we still face today on a countywide basis. In terms of my service here at Cuyahoga County, I began my work focusing on affordable housing, on rental housing, on serving our homeowners, on working on programs to remediate lead paint from their homes, and became involved in financing of housing projects as well. Over the years, my span of responsibility grew to include our community development work, grants made to cities, funding of projects that are not strictly housing, and more recently, the past 5 years, has grown to include all of the work the Department of Development does. The economic development work, our workforce innovation work, as well as our traditional community development work. Along the way, I've attended a number of leadership training programs, some county-sponsored, some external. I've received advanced training in some technical areas. I'm a subject matter expert in some of the federal programs we administer, have certificates to that effect. But I think most importantly, have had the opportunity to learn from a series of inspiring leaders who've been directors of the department. I just want to list some of the names, many familiar to you, I think. Cheryl, as I've indicated, Stephen Sims, Tracy Nichols was our director, Larry Benders was our director, most recently Ted Carter. Each of these has been a mentor. Each of these has taught me both technical and also leadership skills, which I've been able to apply. Also want to acknowledge some of the chiefs who maybe at the next level up have really engaged in our work, who I've also learned from. Lee Trotter, Nate Kelly, and Matt Carroll, who's still serving in the administration. All of these have given me terrific support and terrific advice as I move forward. So I bring to this job now, many years of experience in the county, relationships across all county departments, which is essential to getting the work done by smoothly coordinating our work with that of the other departments, external relationships as well, with the major actors we need to work with as we advance the county in our economic development and community development work. I expect during the question period, you'll have the opportunity to probe some of these. I will simply note here among some of the major organizations I work with and have experience working with, our friends at Team Northeast Ohio, Team NEO, the Jobs Ohio affiliate, our friends at the Greater Cleveland Partnership in a number of ways, all the 59 municipalities, their mayors, their economic development directors, the housing organizations, including CHN Housing Partners, some of the smaller ones, such as Community Housing Solutions as well. Enterprise Foundation, the Local Initiative Support Corporation, which is coming back to Cleveland. So I'm used to operating both externally and internally at a level of leadership and coordinating resources to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. I've had the opportunity in my time with the county to engage some association work, both statewide and national. I've had the opportunity to serve on the board of the National Association for County Community Economic Development. That's our national affiliate. It's hooked up with the National Association of Counties, and that's been tremendous in terms of a perspective on what our colleagues in other counties are doing around the country. All parts of the country, all political philosophies, all types of challenges they face, yet there's a common approach many of us in county government have to working with our municipalities, supporting their development, and it's been a tremendous source of peer-to-peer advice as well as best practices when we face an issue here. Statewide, I've had the opportunity to serve our statewide group called the Ohio Conference of Community Development. Rose through the ranks there, served as president for a year, and had the opportunity again to network with peers statewide, also to be involved to some extent in working with state government on issues important to us as community and economic development practitioners. So I bring that resume to this position. Let me talk a little bit about my approach to community economic development. I've had the opportunity, again, to be part of developing the county's approach over many years, the ability to have directors and those above them listen to my advice, and I feel that to a great extent we've already been able to put some of the best practice into play. There's always room for improvement. We are fortunate here that we have a single department. Our friends across the street, Councilman Sweeney will know, and others have separate departments of community development, economic development. They're united by a chief, Chief Ed Ribka. The strategies are aligned, but there are benefits here to being able to walk right down the hall and work with Sarah Parks Jackson, our housing leader, and her staff, work with Michael May, our economic development leader, and his staff, work with our Skill Up staff without having to make a big arrangement for a meeting. And this is important to us strategically because the issues and concerns that our residents and businesses face cannot be neatly put into one silo. We cannot say the problems our residents face are only residential problems. We cannot say the problem of affordable rental housing is just a housing problem, because it's not. The problem of affordable rental housing is a problem of jobs. Folks who have jobs with family-sustaining wages can afford to pay market rents. To truly understand and attack the shortage of affordable housing, we have to understand and attack the problem of jobs not matching the talent of our residents. And so many of our residents going without the well-paying jobs they should have. In terms of our communities, we cannot say we simply need to attract businesses. We need to work with our municipalities, with their planners, their leaders, to attract the kinds of businesses that are appropriate for the places the communities have. Not all of our communities have the kind of space that's appropriate to attract heavy industry. Not all of our communities have the kind of space that's appropriate to even attract light industry. Some are bedroom communities. So to truly advance our economic development, we must work with our communities, with our planners, to understand what each of our communities needs and to support that community in attracting the types of business and commercial and residential development that will meet that community's needs. We are organized in about the right way. I suspect this will come up in the questioning. There are not any major changes I intend to make in the Department of Development. There is perhaps not complete coordination between our workforce unit and our economic development unit, and that's one of the things I intend to address through a little bit of organizational reform. But for the most part, we've been able to hire and retain skilled staff who are proficient at doing the basic things you have to do to run a Department of Development. On the housing community development side, we have to understand the types of funds we have, which are federal funds, community development block grant, and home program funds for the most part. Sometimes others come. We have to be skilled at preparing the plans that are needed to spend these funds, planning the projects, carrying out the projects, entering into contracts, monitoring the work of those we contract with, following up to make sure the money's properly spent, properly reported. We are fortunate to have skilled staff to do this. On the economic development side, we have the traditional and very important function of providing capital to businesses for their growth and to help them make the decision to move here. We do this by making loans. We do that skillfully. We have a staff that's well-trained. They've all received their National Development Council certificates. We have processes in place to appropriately consider when to make loans. to decide when to get the green light to go forward, when to bring them to our loan review committee, when to bring them to council for approval. For the most part, we've been able to respond quite favorably to requests from businesses for the financing they need. We could always use more money. Any organization could use more money. But our staff do, I believe, a good job in applying the program descriptions we've created to filter through to say which funding opportunity makes sense, which will create jobs, which will bring the kind of business we want to attract to the right place in the county. We don't just do our work directly, and it's very important that we also work with partners, especially in the arena of supporting the county's small businesses. This is an area where it's important to understand that small business owners have special, unique needs. They're wearing so many hats. They may themselves be facing challenges. They really need the kind of detailed advice and support and assistance that it would not be prudent to have a large in-house staff to do. We have wonderful partners. These partners include the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, Jumpstart, Economic and Community Development Institute, President's Council, Hispanic Business Center, Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, others. We provide funding to them. We're right in the middle, in fact, of a new cycle of allocating funding. We bring them together to learn best practices from each other. We support them with advocacy when needed, but their work on the front lines is work that they do directly. And so we will continue to grow this network of partners. We recently added a construction partner, Ariane Kirkpatrick, who's working with minority construction companies as well. We will continue to grow that, provide resources for that important work. The area we need to focus on, in my opinion, in economic development is not money, it's talent, it's workforce. Over and over again, as we work with our friends and partners at Team NEO, at the Greater Cleveland Partnership, as we learn about opportunities to bring a new business here, as we ourselves reach out to businesses and say, you know, we have all the water you might want in Lake Erie, please come here, we hear expressed to us concern. If I bring my business here, if I build my factory here, will I be able to find the workers I need to do the jobs I need done to bring my business here? We have made strides in this area. We have some great work underway. Just this morning, we were at an event over at Brown Stadium celebrating some of the good work that's being done by our manufacturing companies together. We have a ways to go. And we as county government, and specifically Department of Development, need to lean into this a little bit more. We have a wonderful human services operation, ably led by Director David Merriman. We have many services available to our residents to meet some of the barriers that may be keeping them from fully participating in the workforce. Financial barriers, childcare barriers, issues people may face that they need to overcome. We have a good system in place. That system is already well coordinated with the workforce system, but we need to do more. On the business side, we have strong relationships with our business attraction partners, with our cities, but we need to dig deeper and find out in more detail where the gaps are in the workforce that companies are looking for, and work harder to bring that steady and sufficient supply of talent to the companies that need that in order to move here. So one of my major focuses as I begin my work as permanent director will be to lean in to even engage even more deeply with the workforce system, with the human services system, with the business attraction system, to continue to support and even drive efforts to really match up the talent supply with the talent needs of our businesses. As I wrap up my presentation and begin to invite questions, I want to add one more acknowledgement. Like any person who's had a career, I could not have come here without the support of my family. I'd like to acknowledge my wife, Dr. Sharon McGraw, in the audience. One of our children is here. As everyone knows, a family is a business, and our family business is here before you today.
Right.
Go.
Well, I'm clapping. Sorry.
And Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any questions from my colleagues? Councilman, who would like to start out round one?
Mr. President, and to Mr. Herdick, First, I'd like to congratulate you on a long and dedicated career of public service, and it's always good to see when the county is choosing somebody that's worked their way through the ranks and has the experience within county government. So I'm encouraged by that. So the questions I have are questions relating to broad perspective, because I think we're in times that are very different from any other that we've seen and need new approaches and new emphases. And my first question is whether you agree that climate change is one of the premier problems facing the planet that we must all be involved in. And if so, how can we best pursue economic developments in ways that reduce our carbon footprint and increases our resiliency to the impacts of climate change?
Thank you, Councilman, for the question. There is no doubt that climate change is one of the major issues facing not only our nation but the world at this time. It is a national security issue. It is something we must all come to terms with. We are fortunate that our county has taken a position on this in favor of sustainability. We have a Director of Sustainability, Director Foley. We've taken some steps to make commitments to reduce our carbon footprint as an enterprise. We have done things ranging from planting trees to supporting solar energy projects to supporting the development of renewable wind energy, just approved a little bit of support by our Board of Control. But specifically in terms of the business focus, the economic development focus, we have the opportunity to leverage our advanced manufacturing capability to fully participate in the development of more efficient vehicles, processes, all types of machines. We are well positioned to be the place where things are made and designed that will be needed as the country and the world moves to a more sustainable type of economy. We have technology here, we have manufacturers here, we have designers here, we have a reasonably supportive state government here, we have an increasingly supportive federal regulatory scheme to provide the types of tax incentives needed to attract and support these industries. Among the initiatives that the administration's been working on, economic development works hand in hand with sustainability, is the development of a green bank that would provide favorable financing for projects such as large-scale solar projects that would help us reduce reliance on fossil fuels here in Cuyahoga County. We do not, of course, control state or national policy. We can and do advocate for policies that are sensible in this regard, but what we can do and will do is work to support our industries that are part of the solution to the problem of climate change.
Thank you very much for the response, and I really appreciate your approach. Just one comment that state government policy on renewable energy is atrocious and needs a lot of improvement, and we're getting left in a trail of dust because of that. So, but other than that, I appreciate what you've said. Second question is, how can we best pursue economic development in ways that effectively fight systemic racism and help ensure that our economic progress broadens out to include those who in the past have been left behind?
Thank you, Councilman. Again, all of county government is committed to addressing this issue. Council has been, of course, a leader in this effort, having passed resolutions and put together the Citizen Advisory Committee on Equity. The executive has issued executive orders on attacking this issue, has formulated an internal committee. But beyond the fact that countywide we are committed to doing the right thing in terms of equity and inclusion, there's a particular focus that we in economic development have, and I've been able to be a part of for many years now. And that focus is on increasing opportunities for persons who have been historically left out. Persons of color, for the most part, who do not have the family wealth that is what is needed to start a small business. Persons who, in the analogy of the race, are starting the race 20 yards behind the starting line because of historical systemic racism. My approach to this, our approach in the Department of Development has been to work strenuously to provide the kind of support, assistance, advice, financing, and opportunities for connection that small businesses need to get started, to grow, and to thrive, especially those owned by disadvantaged persons. The banking system is facially neutral, but it has disparate impact. So small businesses owned by persons of color need some help getting started, need seed loans, need some advice along the way to apply for and become bankable up to standards. And we support this. We support this through our partners, some of those I named earlier. We intentionally say to our partners, we would like you to focus on assisting businesses owned by disadvantaged persons. We cannot say exclusively, and we should not say exclusively, but we can and do say make a special effort to focus on businesses of that character. I'll give one statistic here. This has been said before, but last year, when in response to COVID, we originated several rounds of small business grants, we were fortunate to have external advisors helping us set the criteria, and as a result of this, an intentional focus on outreach to small businesses owned by persons of color, over 57% of those grants did go to minority-owned businesses, and we're proud of that record. In our larger projects, we have made it a focus, I have made it a focus, especially recently when we're negotiating with our larger companies to say, well, it's terrific that we can support your project, but can you do more, especially in terms of advancing employment opportunities for disadvantaged people? One example I'll give is last year we approved a loan to Gojo to build a new manufacturing facility in the city of Maple Heights. Part of our negotiation with the company was an agreement to work with the mayor of Maple Heights, Mayor Blackwell, to make sure there's hiring opportunities for residents of Maple Heights at that plant. Those are good manufacturing jobs. We're just now negotiating, and I can't say publicly the name of the company, a large, well-known company here in Cuyahoga County, where again, we're indicating we'd like to support an expansion project, we'd like to provide some financial help, we'd like you to affirmatively recruit persons of color, disadvantaged, for some of the good jobs being created by this project. So the approach I take is to nudge, to encourage, to provide resources to support, advancement of businesses owned by persons of color. I will say, and employment for those as well. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I ask one more, and then I'm ready to pass it along to the next round. And my third question is, what things can we do in terms of economic development to better enable those who are returning from incarceration to be successful in our economy?
Thank you, Councilman. I almost feel like I should pass the baton to Councilman Schron on this one, and the reason is the county does have a strong reentry program. It's housed in Health and Human Services. It's very important. It's very needed. It works on the services side of working with individuals, returning citizens, to see what supports they need, what help they need to overcome barriers, to become employed, if they've got some residual barriers, to help them with those as well. That's the supply side. What's new and what we've been leaning in on through our workforce sector partnerships is what I'd call the demand side. There are many, many employers who are hurting themselves and don't realize it by having this arbitrary question on their employment application, have you ever been convicted of a felony? They call it the box. And despite many years of advocacy for taking the box away, there's still many, many employers who just reflexively ask that question and rule out folks with a record without even considering the value they might bring. At the same time, so many employers are saying, I can't find help, and don't realize that they're turning away a great source of talent that they could be employing. The reason I named Councilman Schron is it's our manufacturing sector partnership, where Jack is a member, as a business owner, that has really led the way in showing that businesses motivated by profit, capitalists, can find their way, because it's in their own economic interest, to say, we want to hire folks that have this kind of past. And we'll treat them the same as any other employees, and are finding a talent pool there that has been untapped and unused. So in this area, we must continue our good work on the services side, but intensify our work on the demand side, working with employers to help them realize that they have such a great opportunity to draw on this pool of workers that will be good workers for them if they just stop putting that box on every employment form.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other questions?
Thank you. I'm a little embarrassed as far as the segue on that, because I think we knocked it out of the park. Oh, actually not. We scored a touchdown today with a different venue. We're at the stadium. We're at the Brown Stadium, not the baseball stadium today. So I have to stay with my proper analogy. One of the things that unfortunately takes place in economic development sometimes is we throw money at an issue and then we walk away from it and we go on to the next issue. If you thought today was an impactful presentation from those 52 men who did not have one single day of recidivism for the last year plus, is this something that the Economic Development Department will continue to support? Because it's not just a 3-year one and done. This is a commitment that I believe, if these other programs need to go on infinitum, this is one that clearly is one. If we're the #1 place for individuals coming out of incarceration in the entire state of Ohio, then this needs to always be a top of conversation, because we need to fix this permanently, and it means a continual aspect. So with that, I know that I don't want to be out there lobbying particularly for this, but I think it's a question I want to make sure I understand. Sometimes economic development is one and done, move on, one and done, move on. What's your thoughts as far as long-term sustainability to an issue of this nature?
Right. Thank you, Councilman, for the question. It is very timely because we are nearing the end of a 3-year funding commitment that we, Cuyahoga County, made to our workforce sector partnerships. We came before this council 3 years ago and recommended spending $1 million from the Economic Development Fund on workforce sector partnerships. At the time, I recall being in the room when there was some discussion about this. There were some who said, why are you spending economic development money on this? Isn't this a human services issue? And the answer which Chief Carter gave at the time, and which this council endorsed, was no, this is an economic development issue for the very reasons I just stated to Councilman Miller. It is necessary that our businesses have enough talent in order to grow. And when we work on the issue of breaking down barriers that keep people from employment, we are advancing the interests of our businesses. We are enabling them to grow. We are helping to answer the question we're asked when we're talking to a business owner, will I find the jobs, to say, yes, we can show you that we're doing things to make sure you have enough talent to come fill your jobs. So yes, it is very much an economic development issue. It is timely because we will be discussing, first, I believe, before Councilman Schron's committee, that's up to the President, then this council, refunding of this important initiative over the next period of time. But it is, in my opinion, an essential and appropriate use of some of our economic development funding to continue support for this work.
What does the preamble say about this job? Not looking down at it. I want your eyes up here.
Okay.
This should be a memorized topic if you understand the job you're applying for.
Sure. So I actually refer to the mission of the Department of Development because the director leads the Department of Development. So what I have memorized, because I've had to repeat it a couple times to people that didn't know it, is that when the voters of Cuyahoga County gave us a new form of government, gave us a charter about, I think, 11 years ago now, they said a couple very important things about economic development. The first is that economic development is a primary purpose of the government of Cuyahoga County. That's kind of revolutionary. There's not many counties or cities for that matter, that have in their founding documents a statement of that kind. But beyond that, it's the mission of the Department of Development to lead and coordinate the county's activities related to development, but also to investigate the reasons why our citizens and some of our neighborhoods are not fully engaged in the economy, and to design and carry out programs that alleviate these problems. So that strikes squarely at the problem of poverty, at the problem of historic discrimination, about the fact that so many of our residents have been left out of the opportunity to both get good jobs and own small business, create wealth. And it tells us, the charter tells us, that it's the job of the department and the job of the director leading it to investigate those causes and design and carry out programs to overcome them. So I say that's squarely in line with my view of what we should do with this job. We've been given the tools, we've been given the funding, we've got the staff. We will continue to do exactly that. We work with our partners. We have human services partners. We have thought leader partners such as the Fund for Economic Future. They can assist us in doing part one, which is figure out what's wrong, and then we need to work with those partners to do part two, which is design things to overcome it. I'll give one example. One of the problems we know exists is that people can't get to work. Now, for us, all of us have a car, unless we choose not to. And for us, this is not so much an issue of can as is there a traffic jam. And great thing about Cleveland, by the way, part of my sales pitch is you don't run into many traffic jams here. So for us, getting to work is not a big issue. But for many of the employees that our companies seek to attract, it is a huge issue. Entry-level employees, many of them struggling financially, don't have a reliable car. So many of our residents have that one barrier facing them. There may be a terrific manufacturing job out in Solon. They're qualified, just can't get there on time. And the employer needs them to be there on time every day, 5 days a week, 8 hours. The employer needs that. Now, the good news is work's been done along these lines. We funded about 2 years ago now something called the Paradox Prize, which was really financial support for innovative ideas to overcome this barrier. We're awaiting word and expect to have it this month of funding of a larger demonstration program at the Fund for Economic Future to really fund some solutions. But solutions are developing. Here's one of my favorites, and I think Jack knows this one. It's the church vans. One of the things we found out, our friends found out, was that there are many churches in the community, especially the urban community, where churches might own a van or two, and those vans just sit idle 6 days a week. And so one of the innovative solutions that's been developed is paying financially the small neighborhood churches to use their vans to bring people to work. And guess what? It's not just getting them to work. It's also the connection those church leaders have with people in their community that helps build up the trust and get it connected with the job. Now, this needs to be scaled. This needs to be scaled just like our efforts to help the returning citizens have to be scaled. We need to scale this up to the point where we have thousands of ways for people to get from where they are to where the job is until they can accumulate enough money, have enough a cushion of savings to have that reliable car so it's no longer an issue. But these are the kinds of solutions that it's our job to work with our partners to find, and if necessary, to find some funding for, so we can have them as part of our answer to the question, why are there jobs going empty while people are going begging for a check?
Just to follow up on that, if you've got all these social service organizations that you're working with and coordinating with and partnering with, why isn't that their responsibility and yours is the job? Because the job is the driver for the social services to what your solution you were talking about. But without that, there isn't any need to go through the Paradox program or solution out there as far as that. So why isn't that your first task and let somebody else make the other part be their first task?
Councilman, thank you for the question. It's an excellent question because we often find that all the pieces of a solution already exist, but they're not being put together. So the role we've carved out is to bring together the many strands of our workforce system, our friends at the Unemployment Office, Ohio Means Jobs, our social service colleagues. Towards Employment is a terrific organization working along those lines, and to say we need to better align this work that's being done. One of the challenges we face is that the world our human services colleagues live in is a world of compliance. It's a world where there's so many rules you have to follow from the federal government, and so much effort is spent with paperwork documenting that everyone being helped is eligible, that everything's being done correctly. It's a culture of compliance, and that isn't exactly what's needed to apply all these resources to bridge the gap and connect the people with the jobs. So it's a matter of coordinating, a matter of bringing together, a matter of aligning missions, a matter of setting up a system where it won't be so hard for an employer to say, you know what, I just need help getting 20 people to come to my plant. Who can I call? And having that one place for the employer to call and get the help they need to solve that problem.
Mr. Hurtig, I'd like for you to talk about how you plan to be successful. What are the top 3 elements that would give us the trust to authorize you to be the next Director of Development?
Thanks. Earlier today, by the way, on a conference call, I was asked to name someone who was a mentor, and I named Councilperson Stevens, who gave me some great advice when I first joined the county. There's 3 important elements, it's about 3, that any leader needs to be successful. One of them is the team that the leader has to work with. And I say work with, not to have them work for, but to work with. It needs to be a team. We are fortunate, I am fortunate to have a terrific team in the Department of Development. I've had the chance over the years to be involved in hiring many of these team members, in making sure they were trained, making sure they're fully engaged in our work. My basic philosophy is that, you know, members of the team need to understand what they're being asked to do, need to be committed to that, and they need to be challenged to work to their full capacity. And we've got a terrific team at the Department of Development. Second element that is very much needed is support across the organization. I've been able, in my time in Cuyahoga County, to have the opportunity to work across the organization, especially with the departments that development has to work with to be successful. Our fiscal office, you know, Mike and I have come up together through the ranks, Mike Chambers, the staff in budget, the staff in accounts payable, the staff in Office of Procurement Diversity, which faces a daunting challenge sometimes, but you know, is there to help us. Our friends in Public Works, our friends, of course, in Human Services. You know, I've had the opportunity to build strong relationships with those leaders where we have mutual trust, and that means that I can be effective in getting things done. And I will say, again, that the executive showed his confidence by putting my name forward in nomination. The third important leg of the stool is external relationships. Again, I've had the opportunity here working both on my own account as a leader in housing community development to build relationships with our municipalities, and then working hand in hand with our most recent leader, Ted Carter, for 5 years to build strong relationships with our economic development partners. You know, Bill Kaler, his staff over at Team Neo, Beju and his staff over at Greater Cleveland Partnership, you know, Brad and then his successors over at Fund for Economic Future. And these are folks, Grace Galucci over at NOACA, these are all folks that I've had the chance to work directly with. We've had the chance, again, to establish that trust. And the trust is so important because there are times when I may have to say to someone, such as Grace, you know, we need some help from NOACA, and I need you to ride with me on this because this is something really important to the county, so please help me out on this. I'd be remiss not to mention our friends. There are 59 cities, as Ken Malek always reminded me, and there's not any one you should call the city, but there is a large city called the City of Cleveland. And I've also had the opportunity to work closely with Dave Ebersole, Ed Ribka over there, you know, with the folks in the Community Development Department over the years. And while I know they're going through transition now, there's still institutional connections that will survive no matter what happens in November. So those, I think, Cheryl, are 3 legs of the stool why I feel I'm in a great position to lead this department.
If there's one thing you want for the future, what is that? Because I think that strategic planning and having goals are incredibly important.
Thanks. Another great question, Councilwoman. I could say an unlimited checkbook. That's not going to be feasible. So we all have to live within the means that we have. What I would hope to see is that the really smart people who occupy some of our partner organizations will continue to see the value of the work we're doing together, especially the workforce work, because I believe strongly that is what's going to give Cuyahoga County and the state of Ohio a competitive advantage if we can accelerate our work on that issue, get ahead of the pack, develop solutions. So what I'd like to see is a continued commitment by all of our friends on the business side, the municipalities, the business organizations, to agreeing that the workforce issue is issue number one, and we all have to lean in together to work on that.
We all do things right. We all do things wrong. Sometimes we just accidentally miss them. There was a history of time, a period of time where our loan collections were not going well. What have we got in place to make sure that that's not one of the things we get wrong again?
Right. Thanks for the question, Councilwoman. That's actually a story which had a painful start and a successful end. Here's some of the things we've done, and I was able to participate in that because we had to go across boundaries in the department to lean on this. We realized, for one thing, we were understaffed, and we've added 2 permanent full-time positions specifically to manage our economic development loan portfolio. Those are occupied currently by well-qualified people. Should that change, we would be able to continue to recruit people. We put a strong software system in place, one we had but hadn't been really using to its full potential. It happens to be called Portful. It's the gold standard in servicing these kinds of loans in the industry. We accepted help from outside. We spent a bunch of money on a high-priced consulting firm and followed their recommendations. More importantly, we made a commitment inside the department to have a culture of accuracy and thoroughness in documenting everything we did. My little piece of this was the job creation piece at the time. One of the small problems we had along the way is we were being kind of sloppy in reporting our job creation. We put an end to that. We have systems in place where we do very detailed data collection and check that as well. So I'd say it's a combination of appropriate staffing, putting systems in place, and having a culture of accuracy and accountability that's helped us to overcome that.
Through the chair to Mr. Hurdick, congratulations on getting to this step, and welcome to your family for being here. I have about 3 questions. Now, this is something that I have been passionate about or just been contacted by because of the way my district sits and the failing infrastructure, many of the nonprofits as well as businesses. So over the last year or so, the county has received multiple requests, which I've spoken to you about, from nonprofits for capital funding. What role should the Department of Development have in these nonprofit requests? And should there be a nonprofit division as part of the Economic Development Fund? If not, why not?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman, for the question. We do indeed have a need for assistance. Many of our nonprofit organizations, which provide badly needed services to the community, are occupying buildings that are near or at the end of their useful life. A nonprofit is an enterprise just like a for-profit business. Their investments have to be made from time to time in capital. The challenge that faces us in the Department of Development is matching our available resources with the need. We have as our main resource a fund of money that was established by council, and council has dedicated revenue every year from the casino tax to that fund. It's an economic development fund. That fund needs to be used to support activities that are private businesses that create jobs. That's its mission, that's its purpose. The loan programs we have in place have to be looked at through that lens. It is not so much an issue of the form of business, because we've looked at a couple businesses nonprofit in nature. It's understanding what the purpose of the lending is. The purpose of the lending has to be to support business growth and expansion that creates new jobs. So we are challenged in that the need exists, but the major resource we have does not match with the need. I talk frequently with my friend David Merriman about this problem. We acknowledge there's a problem. It's come to a head this year, as I'm sure council has heard, because one big funding stream many nonprofits were relying on, the Violence Against Women funding, has disappeared. And it's been particularly acute, but that's really a different problem from the problem of needs for capital funding. I believe that our Health and Human Services operation is best suited to gauge the needs. The Department of Development will gladly participate, will provide its staff expertise if there's questions about underwriting, if there's questions about business elements of these needs. But I believe that that's the part of the county best suited to truly understand and be able to work and say, you know, where might available resources be applied. Having said this, I'm not trying to spend David's money for him, but I believe that that's where strategically the knowledge base should be of where limited funds ought to be invested, assuming one can solve the problem of where do you get the money from.
Okay. Because you do admit that there's a need.
There is
No
no doubt,
question.
Councilman, that there is a need.
So our infrastructure is still failing, so we need to be creative and think about these. So maybe me, you, and David could have a conversation in regards to how do we put things in place or at least something. My next question would be, you stated, this was one of your statements, that jobs are not matching the skill set to assist with the affordable housing. What role do you see this department playing, and how do you plan on getting or working with individuals to get the skill set needed for these type of jobs?
Thanks very much, Councilwoman. And again, I do want to touch on the fact that we do recognize a need to support the development of affordable housing. We do have a federal resource which we will continue to apply. We were quite active over the last year in standing up emergency rental assistance programs to respond to COVID. That need is ongoing, and we are working. You know, Sarah Parks Jackson, our housing leader, is most directly working, but the need certainly exists. But in terms of the need for jobs, again, this is a continuation, as I've talked about, of the fact that there are barriers that individuals have. Some of these are personal barriers, some of these are institutional barriers, some of these are barriers on the employer side. But in order to really break down the disconnect, work is needed on all sides. We actually don't know everything we'd like to know about what the needs are. It is difficult to get good information on talent gaps at the level we'd like to be at. We do know want ads are out. We know that employers anecdotally tell us they can't hire. We need to do a better job of digging a little deeper to understand exactly where the vacancies are. We need to apply better some of the tools we've developed, which include training people once they get in the door, entry level, for the next level of jobs. But fundamentally, we need to have a shift in thinking about it's all the employee's problem to thinking about it's a joint problem between the business and the employee, which they can work together to solve and connect that person who really wants to work with that job.
I've had these conversations with probably Sarah and some of the other directors, and this next question probably is a part B to what your answer was, because I had sat down a while ago and spoke with former Director Gillette regarding, because I try to think globally, how do we solve some of these situations regarding the development with individuals that don't currently have a home, strengthening their skill set and matching them with the job. So I kind of look at the funding and all the resources and money that we're putting in to the homeless shelters. How do we empty them in terms of skill set to move them to housing?
Yes. Thank you again, Councilwoman. Terrific question. We are fortunate to have a strong Office of Homeless Services in Cuyahoga County, actually a good example of county-city of Cleveland collaboration, and you know, skilled staff and some resources, federal resources. But again, the resources are mainly directed towards immediate aid, providing the housing. One of the things that sometimes surprises folks who haven't been briefed is that there are individuals in our shelters who are actually working. Not all, but some of our individuals are actually working and still living in shelter. So again, it's a complex issue. It is a fact. We must acknowledge that some folks who are in a situation of homelessness have barriers. Some have substance abuse barriers. Some have mental health barriers. So again, it's necessary to meet the individual where they are fully. I think our county has made an important step, and it's not new. It's 15 years old now, in recognizing that we can start to help homeless people where they are. And what I'm talking about is our move to support what's called permanent supportive housing. There used to be a theory that said, someone has to deserve a helping hand. We're not going to house someone until they stop drinking, for example. That doesn't work. So 15 years ago, our homeless office realized we need to allow people to move into safe, decent, affordable housing, even if they're not model citizens yet, because the great news is once they're there, we can bring them services. That system has helped. That is one way we can deliver or even more intensify the employment services, trying to match the folks with available jobs with job training. So it's not a radical change, it's just an adding on and intensifying something that already exists.
One little quick final question. What role did you play, or how much of a role did you play in the 5-year economic development plan, the new?
Yes. Thanks to Councilwoman. Chief Carter and I worked together side by side during his entire tenure. And I take responsibility for this year's version because he was gone. So to the extent that it makes sense, I will accept some credit for that. To the extent it needs to be changed, I accept the accountability to change it. It's a living document. It's a living document, and it needs to be adjusted, especially right now because we're coming out of COVID. What I have tried to do is lay out in our plan the things that are most important, tried to lay out, workforce, economic development. We have a community development section based on placemaking. These are all things that are important, and to list actions that not only we, the county, but our partners can take, and we must encourage them to take to address those. We have a set of economic measures. We got some academics at Baldwin Wallace grinding away on that. But we really do want it to be taken seriously as a framework against which we can judge investment possibilities. When a loan offer comes to us, one of the first things we do is say, does this advance the county's economic development strategy? If so, which part? So absolutely can stand improvement, but I believe we're in pretty good shape in having our plan actually state what our strategy is.
Thank you, and congratulations to this point. It is good to see someone come up through the ranks and you're just ready to go. You don't, there isn't much of an orientation you need at all. So that is very good, and I've enjoyed working with you. Something that's been brought to our attention in Board of Control, I believe on 2 levels, and I want to get in the weeds just a little bit, and that is the Skill Up program.
Sure.
So the Skill Up program, we have invested a great deal of money in, great deal of time. There are people that are dedicated to it. Yet, I believe we were told that it is now under reorganization, that there are some redesign of that program. And from what I'm hearing recently, it needs to be perhaps looked at again, that we're not getting the word out to enough businesses, we're not getting enough people that are interested in the program. Can you elaborate on where your thoughts are with the Skill Up program?
Thanks, Councilwoman, for the question. And I agree with you, we're not getting the impact we need to. Let me quote a few statistics here. In the early years through 2018, 315 employees were trained for higher levels of skill. In the year 2019, 269 were trained. In the year 2020, arguably because of COVID, 52 were trained. This year to date, only 10. Something's wrong. We have a staff who knows what they're doing. We have a staff of 8. We just recently lost their manager for family reasons, nothing related to the job, but David Feinerman moved out of state. We have a staff of 8 who are good at working with businesses to help the businesses see what their training needs are. They're good at working with businesses to match up their employees with available training, and they're as good as anyone can be in our large county system at processing the paperwork that needs to be done. But somehow the focus has shifted off where it needs to be. I believe this has happened with good intentions. One of the things that's happened over the past few years is the mission of that unit has crept from just helping with training towards more broadly trying to help businesses with all of their needs. And I think it may be a case of what's sometimes called mission creep, where with good intentions, we lose focus. So I'm not ready yet to say exactly what needs to be done. What I will say is that the process that David Feinerman started before he left of doing some customer interviews, of assessing what needs to happen, that's the right process. That's the right process to take to say we need something to change here. As director, I will be involved in that process. I will be working more directly with the staff and also with some of our key outside customers, people I've named early in this meeting, our business partners, say, from your point of view, what could we be doing better? Because we have a great resource here that's not being fully used. We have these 8 people who are good at what they do, are raring to go, and we just need to get them reconnected with the businesses that need them help so we can get our performance numbers back to where they were in the early years.
If I may follow. So that's good to hear. Do you have maybe a goal or a number of what you think back in the early years we were accomplishing and what you'd like to accomplish now? The numbers you gave of 10 this year and 52 last year and even 249 the year before are not great numbers. Is there a goal of how many you would like to see come through that program to feed the pipeline?
Councilwoman, again, thanks for the question. I really have to say I'd like to dig a little deeper into the understanding of the unit. Clearly, 52 in a year is nowhere near acceptable. That's not the kind of impact you want to have. One of the things I think we may be missing, and this is getting a little wonky, is are we actually understanding the full impact? And the reason I say it is this. One of the things the businesses are telling us right now is they appreciate our help with the advice, but they just don't want to do the paperwork. So some of the businesses are telling us, thanks for the advice. We went and did what you told us on our own, and we don't need your money because, frankly, your forms are too hard to fill out. So I don't think we're truly measuring the impact our staff are having the way I'd like to measure it. So I'm going to have to beg for a little more time, and certainly we'll come back and brief the committee or the council as appropriate on the progress we're making on focusing this unit, setting good goals for it, and managing towards those goals.
Thank you for that, and I do wish you luck. The the one barrier you may not consider is that not all private sector companies look at government as helpful. So I think that's a first, perhaps, understanding going in that perhaps in past experience there hasn't always been a good relationship with government and government's help, and they're not sure they want to engage, but just for whatever that's worth. We were also told by someone from Ohio Means Jobs that only 1 out of 4, I believe she said it was 1 out of 4, are even able to fill out the application or go before that company to apply for a job, and that there is really a soft skill need that needs to take place before we can even engage in the practice of getting that person employed.
Right. Thanks, Councilman. Again, that's a great question. Soft skills is a term that's thrown around a lot and, doesn't always mean the same thing. And I think we want to be careful to distinguish. There are truly some skills that folks need to acquire that they may not have learned properly in school. That's another whole problem. And it is absolutely necessary to offer that to them. Here's one example of something on different one of our sector partnerships is doing. It's called the Healthcare On-Ramp. Some call it boot camp. I prefer to call it on-ramp because it's not quite like boot camp. But still, there is an opportunity for any resident to sign up for a 1.5-week program of daily instruction, which does include things such as how to fill out an application, how to prepare for an interview. They're kind of getting some respectful advice along the way about appearance, for example, things they may not have considered. And what's different here is some of these programs just leave you cold at the end. Okay, good luck, go out and find a job. This leads to a guaranteed interview on day 8. If you show up and attend the program for 8 days and participate, you are guaranteed an interview on day 8 with one of the major hospital chains, and they have jobs waiting to be filled. So the intent here is to help the resident to see it's worth my doing this, because at the end of this is a real job waiting for me, and along the way I learn the soft skills. I do want to comment, though, sometimes the word is used in a way that really means barriers folks have trouble controlling. It's sometimes used in the context of, well, if they just show up on time every day with no drama. And sometimes when it's used that way, there's this other issue of maybe can't afford my car repairs, have problems with daycare. Not that it's not a real issue for the employer, but it's not quite the same as I don't have the skills. It's, I sure would like to be there on time, my car broke down. We have to fix both. But we have to distinguish between what we need to teach the person and other ways we need to help them.
Good answer. I appreciate that. One last quick question I'd like to ask. You are certainly respected for your collaboration. You are certainly understand the county. You know a lot of people. You work with your colleagues. There's no question about that. But as you're entering now this level of being the director of the entire, do you have the ability to sometimes, when needed, just say no? That, hey, I know this person or that person may bring a good idea to your table, very passionate about it, but I'm not quite sure it's either the right time, maybe it's not the right program, maybe that's not enough funding, whatever reasons are. Collaboration goes a long way, but in the leadership role that you're taking on, I would think there would be times when you would just have to say, not now, let's talk later, this isn't appropriate, whatever. How do you feel about that?
Thanks, Councilwoman. Another great question. The problem is that the need is real. And even if I'm not in possession of a resource or I can't muster up a resource to meet the need doesn't exist. So the challenge is to look beyond just saying no to saying, and here's an avenue we can go on together to help you get to where the answer might be yes. So many interactions, as I'm sure you do as an elected official, constituents, come to you with an issue, concern, or problem, can't be met directly by the resource you have. The right approach is, number one, to be honest with them, not to be weaselly, not to lead them on, not to make them feel like, well, maybe if we just think about it some more. If it's not a fit, it's to say, this doesn't fit something we have available. But the most important thing is to say, and we will assist you in trying to find the right place to take that problem. If we don't do that, we've not done our job. So it's no and.
I guess as just a follow-up to that, I'm not really talking about something perhaps you would like to see, but it is an idea that you just don't agree with. Let's just say this isn't, someone wants to build something that is not realistic and it takes resources away from what's something else you think should be in a different direction. Something not so much that you'd like to do and you're going to try to route them to another place that can be helpful.
Right.
But actually, you have a huge plate. It is, as you just said, it's so many levels of people that are encountering you and approaching you and wanting what they want. I guess there has to be times, I'm sure that the former chief has found that there just isn't doable. It just isn't something that you would support.
Thank you, Councilman. Again, it does happen. I actually have faith in the marketplace of ideas, the marketplace of funding. It is generally the case that if a project doesn't make sense, that it won't just be the Department of Development that says that, it will also be the bank and the other funders the project is going to. So for the most part, what we find is if someone comes in with a scheme that isn't really adding up, we're not the only ones telling them that. They're hearing the same thing from their bankers, from other funders they've approached. In terms of policy, we have, again, our strategy, And if we're presented with something that isn't against policy, it's not a personal no, it's let's refer to the county strategy together and see what it says.
All right, I appreciate that answer, and again, congratulations. I look forward to working with you.
Mr. President? All right, thank you. Thank you for being here today, and congratulations on your impending confirmation here. I just had, it's a little more generalized, but it's important. How do you view prioritizing investment to spread the wealth, if you will, from inner ring suburbs to outer ring suburbs? We're a big county, we're a diverse county. As Councilwoman Conwell said, there's a number of municipalities that have aging infrastructure and, you know, issues with bringing new businesses in. How do you envision your role in bringing some of those private businesses to maybe perhaps inner ring suburbs or even Cleveland itself?
Thanks for the question. The first response I have is that we can all win. If we're doing our job correctly, if we're attracting new businesses to come to the county, if we're helping our existing businesses to grow, it can be a win-win situation where we support advancement in every part of the county. We stand aside. We do not encourage businesses just to move from one city to another. We do not ever solicit that. And if we're ever presented with that, the first thing we do is make sure the mayor of the city where the business is now knows this is going on and has the opportunity to try to keep the company there. But for the most part, we view our work as helping to bring new business or grow the existing businesses in the county so everybody can benefit. In terms of questions of infrastructure, we have a limited role. The Department of Development does have a small grant program federally funded. It's available in most of the suburbs, but not all. And council has seen fit to make available some supplemental money as well. We do try to administer that in a rational way where applications are rated on their merit so that the strongest applications get funded. But as a general matter, I would say we're in a situation where we truly can say we want to have a rising tide that lifts all boats.
Okay, appreciate that. One more, just follow up. Do you envision your role or your department's role as reaching out to various communities to see what their needs are, or do you kind of let them come to you, or how do you envision the county's role working with municipalities?
Thanks, Councilman. We absolutely believe we must continue our outreach. Director Pomerantz is here at Regional Collaboration. We have a very strong partnership. Among many other things we do, we hold quarterly meetings just on economic development. We invite all the municipalities to those where we go before them, talk about what we're working on, and most important, entertain their comments, their suggestions, their advice as to what they'd like us to do. This is by no means the only way. We're obviously active in mayors and managers, and certainly because of our funding relationships, we've had a chance to build up strong working relationships across the county. But my Lord, we couldn't do what we do without our municipalities. We
appreciate that, and keep up the enthusiasm and positive vibes in favor of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my esteemed colleagues. Director-to-be, I just want to reflect briefly that I see excitement and I see joy, and those are both good things. I hope they last the entire tenure that you have here. And I really appreciate you saying you're a subject matter expert and have the confidence to say that.
Yes.
So I think we're going to be in for an opportunity to do good things for the county. In regards to my colleagues, the decorum and me clapping, there was no disrespect to my colleagues. I'm just accustomed when someone introduces their family, but I know how serious this confirmation is, and I didn't mean to take it lightheartedly. That wasn't my intent in the opening. And the one thing I just want to ask you as a question, your relationship with your employees and your relationship with this council, I know how you've conducted yourself in the short time I've been here, very responsive with the colleagues. Can you talk about, as a director, how you relate to us? And in regards to I like how you framed it, with, not for, and you can't have every employee coming to your door and knocking, but how would you describe, as the director, the buck stops here of the department interacting with you?
Thanks, Councilman, for both questions. Let me talk first about work in the department. We have a staff of about 35, which means we're a relatively small department, which means I have the luxury of actually being able to be accessible to all the staff if they need me to. And I've had staff at all levels come to me with perplexing problems, and I've been able to have the time to listen to them. For the most part, what we try to do, and I say we, not I, because we have a great leadership team, what we try to do is to make sure, first of all, that the leadership team is well informed about what's going on, and then the leadership team, and sometimes myself through all staff meetings, comes before the staff and really engages them. One of the things I do is, hope I'm not giving away any secrets, but twice a week, all the directors and chiefs get on a conference call with the county executive and talk about various things. And, what I try to do is, within the bounds of what is appropriate, make sure the staff is informed of the direction we're hearing from our leader in these calls, so that staff know, we're thinking about this is an important issue the county should work on. I've found that staff really appreciate knowing how the piece they do relates to the goals of the overall county, so that when they, read in the paper, the county's going to do this, they say, yes, I understand my part in that. For the most part, of course, we have occasional performance issues. Every organization does. For the most part, staff who feel that they understand what's going on, understand their part in it, and feel that their part is contributing are staff that will produce for you. And I've been fortunate, to build up a staff like that over the years. In terms of this council, as director, it's my responsibility to inform the whole council, the committees, and also any member of whatever I can to advance the work. So I believe I've been responsible, commit to continue to be responsive to each member of council whenever it's needed.
Thank you, Director. Follow up on the same line? Thank you, Mr. President. I believe the successes of the department has been attributed a lot to you, working with the director. Who's the new you that's going to help you? Are you going to choose that person, or is it going to be a collaboration with the other, the executive and the chief of staff?
Thanks for the question, Councilman. We actually are well along in a process of selecting a deputy. And, hopefully, if all goes well, we'll have that role filled within the next month or so. And so one of the things about being interim is you need to wear two hats. So I'm looking forward to being able to spend a little more time on the external relationships, even not that I haven't been, but a little more time, because we have two strong deputies. We've got Sarah Parks Jackson, acting deputy for housing. We're going to fill the role deputy for ED, and we'll really have a full house in terms of leadership and continue keeping it going strong.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, offline, maybe you can talk to me about this on-ramp program. It seems like it's very exciting. Once again, congratulations. Celebrate tonight, and I look forward to getting back to work tomorrow.
Thank you.
You had earlier referred to the preambles as being probably the foundational piece of this entire department. I think is that a correct statement?
Well, it's part of the charter, so yes, sir. It's bedrock.
Okay, bedrock. Good, solid. And we just happen to have this up here, by the way. You had played a role in regards to this facility, this factory being opened up?
I've been part of the team that's been making sure we get from loan approval to loan closing, and today I signed the voucher to disperse the $3.5 million.
I'd say it's a pretty important part of the role. I'm sure for the receiver of that, they were appreciative of it. My colleague, Mr. Miller, when he framed his question, framed it so heavily around climate change and its importance and all of that, as far as the driving principle by which he was focusing on. This product is probably 80 to 90%, maybe even higher, petroleum-based, as far as the plastic, the bottles, everything about it. Did you have to balance that at all when you said, answered his question, but yet you just signed a check for $3.5 million to go to this? How do you balance that?
Sure. Councilman, certainly at the county level, we're not going to make federal policy on where we go in terms of our energy, our waste stream. What I hope we're doing is we're supporting more efficient production methods. I hope we're supporting applying the knowledge we have, our engineers, to design our products so that going forward they can be as harmless as possible while achieving the good that's needed.
So your balance in this particular case was to support this product and this company and all those jobs that ripple through this. And as I recall from the ED, when they made the presentation, an expectation that it could as much as double the workforce just in the council president's district.
I would also add, Councilman, that this is also a product that's been very helpful over the past year in helping slow the spread of COVID-19.
I agree.
So there's benefits as well.
Well, they're reinforcing benefits based on that, it sounds like. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to hear, the balancing as opposed to what appeared to be almost a singular direction from Mr. Miller. Thank you.
Just to follow up, Mr. President, I didn't hear a balance in your answer. I just heard that you hope that the market and you hope that they're doing the right thing. And what is in your mind, the importance? I'm sorry, Ms. Councilman Miller's questions, but, you know, do you leave that all to the market in terms of a balance, or do you actually understand and appreciate that we've had the hottest year on the planet this year? It's not getting any better. How do you calculate that balance? That's the question.
Councilwoman, thanks for the question. This is something we probably don't control at the county level, but if we were making national policy, I would advocate for using the market to provide incentives to do the right thing. I would advocate for systems such as cap and trade, which actually use the market to incentivize private companies to do the things that move us in the right direction for our world, for our climate. I think that we have some opportunities here at the county level. We can advocate for that. We can use our powers as we tried to do with the plastics, and we can do what's appropriate. I think that when we participate in the wider marketplace, we are only one player, but I think that we have an opportunity here to use our funding, to use our resources, to use our brain power to support what I see as very positive national goals that are emerging, to not just in this country, but across the world, to have our industrial system move towards one that's producing products that are more sustainable.
Any further questions? Councilman Miller.
I had some additional questions, and I'll start with the one that's kind of a follow-up on what we've just been discussing, which is that we cannot keep producing and throwing away more and more widgets in pursuit of economic growth. The USA is consuming 4 times its share of the world's resources, but the rest of the world is rapidly catching up, and the Earth cannot sustain this level of output. My question is, how do we pursue economic development that expands prosperity for our community, but at a sustainable level of consumption?
Great. Thank you again, Councilman. Our span of control is not universal here. What we can do is continue to try to support the efforts that we know are moving us in the right direction. The adoption of more solar energy, more renewable energy, wind energy, the engineering to be able to produce products that are more efficient, that have a smaller carbon footprint. We can encourage, we can support, we can incentivize research along those lines. We can do all of these things, and we can apply what I believe to be a lot of brain power we have at our universities and in our industry to seek solutions that will let us move in that direction.
Thank you. And a very recent Plain Dealer article contrasted Greater Cleveland unfavorably with Pittsburgh in terms of economic development. My question is, to what extent do you believe that we are underperforming economically compared to comparable regions? And if so, what do we need to do differently to achieve economic development progress that is consistent with the best performing regions around the world?
Thanks, Councilman, for the question. We are lagging in retaining our talent and attracting talent. We are losing too many of our college graduates moving out of the area, and we are lagging behind some other regions in attracting folks with the skills we need to come to move here. One of the things that Pittsburgh has done is very deliberately work with their big research university, Carnegie Mellon, to not only support its work, but also have the innovations that are developed at Carnegie Mellon brought to fruition right there in the Pittsburgh area. So one of the opportunities we can do more with is taking advantage of a huge resource we have right here, which is NASA Glenn. Not only do we have universities, we have NASA Glenn right here, one of the major research centers federally funded in the whole country. So we are working with them. We will intensify this work. One of the things we've done was we've asked our experts on innovation, the folks at Jumpstart, to work more closely with the folks at NASA to say, let's take some of those technologies you developed there, let's find entrepreneurs who want to develop them, but most importantly, let's encourage those entrepreneurs to do it here in Cuyahoga County so that the business stays here, the jobs stay here. So between the tech transfer and working to do a better job on retaining our talent and attracting new talent, these are the ingredients of a recipe that will help us get higher up in the scale of cities that are moving forward.
Mr. President, Mr. Hurdick, final question related to what you just brought up, which is that we have been unsuccessful for decades in doing what other cities such as Huntsville, Alabama, and Houston, Texas have done to take advantage of economic development spin-offs from their NASA facilities. My question is, do you believe the Jumpstart initiative and the development and upgrading of the Aerozone Alliance, which now has several of the key economic development leaders in Cuyahoga County on its board, do you think that these developments give us the opportunity to finally create a breakthrough in this area and enable us to develop a cluster of NASA-related businesses in Cuyahoga County?
Yes, Councilman, I do, and I'll note we have one additional advantage here, which is that Jobs Ohio has made a commitment to work with us on this and has brought on a leader who has experience in doing exactly that around Wright-Patterson. So we also have support at the state level, which is important because they bring money. So with these ingredients, I believe we can make substantial progress on really having the potential of our regional airport and our NASA station realized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions? Well, Paul, you've been very thorough, and you are a known quantity, and I appreciate the 10 years I've had to spend with you and work with you. So with that, I'm going to ask our colleagues if there's a recommendation.
Yes. Mr. President, as Chairman of the Economic Development Commission, it is my honor to recommend for approval for a first reading approval at tonight's meeting.
And
Mr. Chairman, I second that.
Adoption under suspension.
Yes, under suspension.
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Clerk, would you make a roll call for us?
Calling the roll, Ms. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Tuma,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Schron,
Yes.
Ms. Conwell,
Yes.
Ms. Brown is absent, Ms. Stevens.
Yes.
Let the record reflect that Ms. Simon is in attendance, and Ms. Simon.
Yes.
Council President Jones.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, congratulations. All right, at this time, is there any miscellaneous business? All right, if not, this meeting is adjourned, and we will reconvene at 5 p.m. for our regular council meeting. All right.